I have two pumps here. This one is off of our tractor, and this one is off the parts tractor. I do not know if this one operates at all, although it appears to be in a lot better shape. This pump did operate when we parked the tractor back in the 90s. It did seep down over time, semi-quickly, I guess, but it worked. This will be the one we disassemble this round, and we might get to the other one. I'm not sure. I'm still debating whether I'm going to take this one apart or try it. We'll see. I do need to disassemble it enough to clean it up and paint it. We're going to set this one to the side for now, and we're going to concentrate on this one. I've never tested this. The tractor wasn't running, but it did have a belly mower that was lifted by hydraulics, and it was not parked for this. It was parked because it had some engine issues. But I think this is good. I don't want to take it apart just yet. This other one ends up being a challenge to take apart. I might just get that one cleaned up enough to paint it. A couple things on this. Your control rod attaches here. It's pretty sticky, but that is up, raising it. And is hold. And that's down. Now, this adjustment screw here is to actually adjust how quick the hydraulics drop. So if this adjustment screw is threaded in, it wouldn't go down. This lever wouldn't go down all the way, right? So that would be a slower descent. That would be faster. This particular tractor had two cylinders on it. Had one cylinder that went to the back to a snap coupler, and another one to the front to the cultivators. The way this one operates is on the PTO shaft, there's two cam lobes, and they alternate and press these plungers down. So they roll against here, and you got plungers under here. It'll draw your fluid from the transmission housing in and pump it out of here. These rollers are pretty ate up. Definitely have some serious rust pitting going on. The camshaft that these rode on was wore out also. On the PTO gearbox disassembly video I put together, you can see that. Okay, for the first step, we're going to remove these arms and the plungers, and then take off this pickup tube. Part looks pretty self-explanatory. Okay, after removing these clips, we need to drive this pin out. This table might be too much give, but we'll see what we can do here. Yeah, it's coming out, but it's pretty tight. I'm going to take this over to the vise to hold it real quick and knock this pin out. I'll be right back. Okay, we almost have it all the way out. We can go ahead and remove this arm and roller. There's a washer in between. There's not any play in here. The bearing side, the bushing side of it's good. Probably actually has a needle bearing in there. That roller's toast. Oop, catch that one. Same thing with this one. The bearing in there is fine, but the roller's toast. Okay. Now we're going to remove these plungers. Looking at the manual, there doesn't seem to be any seals on here. Doesn't really look too worn. There is some wear here. But I believe these are the two sections that are important for sealing. It's probably important to remember which one goes where, so we'll keep track of that. Spring. A little bit of oil in there. Alright, second one. Doesn't look too bad. A little bit of oil in there. So growing up on this thing, we always change the transmission with gear oil. And when you have hydraulics, you are not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use 30 weight motor oil or a hydraulics slash transmission oil for tractors, which is usually around 30 weight. Never noticed a difference, never noticed an issue, but maybe the hydraulics would have worked faster and better if we didn't. Alright, so now we're going to remove this pickup tube. There we go. It's just a pipe fitting. A little elbow with a nipple on it. Not much more to take apart there. So our next step is to remove the inlet valves. So there's two check valves in here. It's on the inlet side of the pump. So these would be your inlet valves. The outlet valves will be here on the top. Let's cheat a little breaking these loose. Okay. There's definitely some gritty metallic sludge in that. Pretty big chunk of something. Same thing on this one. So what we have inside of here is in each one we have a valve seat insert. That insert is press fit down into the hole. The insert is threaded on the inside. We should be able to put a bolt into it and remove it. So I'm going to try to find a bolt that fits that and rig that up. The thread size on these inserts is 5/16 by 24. In the shop, apparently I have one bolt that matches that, and not a nut. So what I was going to do is put a bolt in, tighten it down, and tighten the nut to pull it. But now I'm just going to build up a spacer and tighten this bolt down to pull it out, at least to the surface. Should come out easy once it gets that far. See if I get enough bite here. I think so. Okay, I felt it move. That's good. Save a little time with this. Just don't want this bolt to go too deep into that valve. I don't know if that causes an issue or not. The book says nothing about it. I think just to be safe, I want to add another spacer. I think this is called getting by with whatever you have laying around. But if you take a look, you can see that that one's close to the top now. So it's definitely getting there. Yeah. I was going to use the impact, but I'd rather be able to control it and feel when it's getting too tight. Just got a little tight. Let's see where we're at. All right, we're up to the surface. To get past that, let's change strategy a little bit here. Okay. Really don't want to grab this with pliers, but let me just grab the edge where I know it doesn't seal. There we go. So we have a spring and a check ball inside of here. There's a little rod going across. I think maybe there's not a spring. Uh-oh, almost lost it there, rod. Our little pin was coming out. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like in there. Okay. Check ball. And a seat. Sure you can't see up in there very good with the camera. We'll put that one back together for right now. Alright, up next. Get the other inlet valve. So it's moving a tad easier than the other. Alright, well I didn't have the correct tool for that, but didn't turn out too bad. Okay. Same as the other, pin comes out, check ball in there. Valve seat. I'll need to clean that up and take a look at it a little better. See if it's any good or not. Okay, that's inlet valves. What's next? I'll throw some pictures of this up at the beginning of the video here, maybe the end, but I'm cheating a little. I have an exploded view, and they do have some bench disassembly instructions. They're semi-vague, but they get me somewhere anyway. Okay, this was the inlet valve because we got the inlet side, right? Next step is discharge valves. Okay, so these caps are a little different. Little spring there, pin in the center. This pin's job is to actually hold that spring further in. I think part of it might seat around that little shoulder there. Not quite sure. See if anything falls out of here. Oh, check balls. And the other spring. Check balls don't look too bad. And the valve seats in this case, I believe, come out the same way, except they are deeper in and I can't get to them. Well, that didn't seem right when I tried to put that screw in, because this bottom's out, but I don't feel any threads there. In the manual, it says remove the discharge valves the same way I did the inlet. These are not threaded. So it does say if they're not threaded, take a punch and put it through the other end and knock them through, but then you got to replace them. But looking at these valves, I don't think I need to remove them to clean this pump up, because now that the spring and check balls are out, there's not much going on in there. I can see straight through it. Don't know how this helps at all. Next step is to remove this lift valve. So the book says remove this first. Remove the washer, the torsion spring, and this lever assembly. So we'll start there. Well, it can't be that easy. And the end of this is a little mangled up. Let me try to level it off, flatten it out a little bit. I don't think that would help at all. Well, we can get half of it out here. The other half will come easier. There we go. Okay, so there's a washer. Then we got a torsion spring here that actually returns this. This is where it flies out and hits me in the face. Nope, there we go. Not too bad. Another cotter pin. The washer. Cool thing about being descriptive in these videos is when I forget how to put it back together, I could always go back and take a look. Okay, so to remove this, the manual says turn shaft to lift position where thimble is the highest point of its travel, and withdraw shaft from pump body. I forget which way is lift position now. I guess that was. Let me see if it does the other way. Yeah. So it will not slide out on the lower position. If you go to lift position, it does come out. So there's a couple slots in this, a hole going all the way through. Got a flat there for something. Something I just noticed inside of here is there's now a plunger blocking that hole, which looks like it comes from this bolt. So I bet that was some form of a detent. Ugh. Well, it had some nasty stuff on it. Okay, that valve actually did not, or that piece we see in there did not come out this side. The piece inside of here is the pressure relief valve. It comes out the top, maybe, because it looks like it's in here. Well, actually, it might slide down the... I don't want to damage it, so I'm not going to force it past any of those threads. I'll go ahead and take this fitting off and see what it looks like under there. Oh, that one's tight. Let me clamp this in the vise, too. Okay. It's definitely not going to come out that way. Yeah, it's definitely not going to come out the top. I think there's another pressed piece in here. Let's see if I can get that up the bottom there. Oh, yeah. Slid right out. The manual says this is the pressure relief valve. So if we're leaving too early, this spring could be worn or weak. It's a pretty stout spring. Just making sure nothing else is going to fall out of there. So there is a seat pressed in here on the discharge side that the pressure relief valve closes against. And to get it out, take a punch, obviously bigger than this one, and punch it through. And it pops out there, but I don't need to remove that unless I see it worn later after I clean it. There's a couple Allen screws on the side here that the manual says nothing about. So I don't know if there would be something under there or not. I'm pretty sure these are the only two Allen screws on the entire tractor. I have not seen any yet. Let's see if they're tight. Yeah, I might take the torch to heat it a tad and Yeah, I won't pull it off right here. See if they're in the exploded view. I don't think so. Yep, they're not in the manual at all. Got a couple pipe plugs here that are, looks like it's just pressure ports for tapping in. Both of these two ports, according to the exploded view, are at the end of these cylinders where the plunger rides. So not sure what they would be for, unless it's for testing or something. I don't even think I'm going to remove them because I can see the other side of them down in there, so I can get it clean enough. The bore looks good. Still see honing marks, at least in the top half. Bore for the valve looks good. So as far as the hydraulics actually seeping down, the fit between this valve and the bore here is the only thing that can affect that. And there's no seals to replace. It's either it works or it doesn't. It looks like, yeah, it's all part of the casting, so you can't replace the cylinder side of it. There is a seal under here. See if I can clean that off. This is just a seal oil from leaking out of the pump shaft. There, it's not going to help the pump work, but the seal just seals against the shaft here to keep oil from leaking out of it. Which I'll definitely be replacing that one. Even if I use the parts pump. So there's really not much to it. As long as these valves are threaded, you could remove them without destroying them. It's totally buildable. Now the manual describes how to insert these. What it says to do is you tap it in place with a brass punch until it's below this threaded hole. Then you tighten down the plug over it to push it the rest of the way in. But there's a certain depth it has to reach. It has to be actually a little deeper than that plug is. So I guess what you would do, and when I reassemble this, if I build that other one, I'll probably put it on video. Where's the plug? Okay, so here's a plug. So say if it needed to be a ½ inch deep, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, and this is a 1/4 inch long, you add a 1/4 inch spacer, tighten it down, and that would seat it to proper depth, I'm assuming. So we'll see. It's yet to be determined whether I will completely tear down the one for the parts tractor, but this one went easy enough. I'm pretty sure I will. Here's our plate full of goodies. Got the valve to control lifting and lowering. Couple arms here with rollers on it. These rollers are right against the eccentrics, the cam lobes on the PTO shaft. And this portion here, one of them's actually worn pretty good, would push on our plungers. They're right in here to actually create the pressure. Got some more of the control linkage. Got the inlet check valves. pressure relief valve. Just a plug. It's kind of the main parts. We've got the check valves, obviously, for the discharge side. The check valves for the discharge side of the pump. That actually doesn't belong there. That was a nut that I was getting when I was trying to figure out how to pull those valves out. Okay, I just wanted to add to the end of this video a little bit. Shortly after, I went ahead and took apart the pump for the parts tractor. And I started noticing a couple things I just wanted to point out here. After looking into it a little more, I realized what these plugs are for. They also have matching plugs in this other one. Although this one's an Allen, this is not. And I don't know if that's because it's been replaced or what. But what those are is those are passageways they use to drill through the casting. And let's start with this one. This passageway here, it's on the bottom. You have your oil travels in, and somehow or another it has to get to these two inlet valves. So oil travels in the center and goes to these valves. So this plug right here is where they use to drill to connect these two passages with the center passage. So they drill all the way through here. It's the same height as this suction. And another thing it has to line up with is the valves themselves. So these inlet valves, this is the inlet. There's 4 holes here all the way around. So fluid travels into these holes, through the check ball, and out this side. There's no spring inside of here because these valves are mounted where they sit up like this and gravity holds the ball down. But when these valves are installed, they're slid in until these grooves right here line up with this drilled port that goes across, which is probably right about here. So fluid flows in here through the pickup into the check valve. Then it gets sucked into this cylinder when the plunger is lifting up. Now when the plunger goes to compress, what happens is the inlet check valve closes, and this is the outlet check valve. You see these 2 plugs on this side? These are used to drill ports from the cylinder to the outlet check valve. So they would normally drill it to here. So fluid's going to flow from this cylinder through that drilled port into this section where the inlet check valve is, and the outlet check valve. And the outlet check valve is just a seat pressed in here with a ball and a spring. The outlet check valve lets fluid go out and into the valving. And then depending on the position of the valve, it's either going to flow out of here or back into the pump into itself. Something else I noticed while taking these 2 apart, the oil in our tractor was clean. It was gear lube instead of regular oil, but it was clean. The oil that came out of this one was very black, very burnt, and stunk pretty bad. There's no more in it now. I can't get a sample of it, but maybe there's some right here. Not really. The oil I drained out of this transmission was milky from water, but it's been sitting for years outside. It wasn't burnt or black or anything. On this pump for the parts tractor, there's a couple things that were in a lot better shape. An example here, this arm that would normally press this plunger. It's worn out pretty bad right there. Both of them on the parts tractor are not. They're in good shape. And similarly, the rollers on mine was pretty ate up. On the parts tractor, they're fine. There was one wear item I found on the parts tractor. Not sure how good that shows up, but there is a little groove right there. And what this is a rod that these pivot on. So I've looked at these and they fit nicely around the area that's not worn, so I don't think these are worn. I think it's just the shaft. But I have a good one. This one here is in great shape, just needs to be cleaned up. So all in all, I'm starting to think I'm going to use a mixture of parts. Another thing I noticed on the inlet valves, this pin that slides through and keeps the check ball in place on our parts tractor is solid, and I can't get it out very easy, and I probably won't as long as I can clean in there without removing it. On our tractor here, this thing slides out with your finger pretty easy. It's also bent. I don't know if it shows up very well, but there's some flat spots in it where the ball was repetitively hitting it. So I don't know if that means the seat's worn or the ball's worn or anything, but we'll probably use the other ones if they're in good shape and they seal. I should be able to clean these out and test them to make sure they seal. I could put compressed air or oil or liquid or something on it and make sure it doesn't flow backwards. So at least they're fully testable. The only thing that I can't really test and probably can't do much swapping with, I could just measure up, make sure they're clean and round and not deformed or anything, is these plungers. But the plungers themselves, it doesn't really hold pressure here. It creates pressure while it's being pumped, but if a little bit leaks out, it's not going to be a big deal. I do need to replace this seal, which I'll just hunt down by size. But all these other parts seem to be in great shape. So I'll clean these off real good, look for wear, and then decide which one I'm going to use. Okay, so I think this is really the end of this video this time. Stay tuned. I guess the next video that involves this pump will be after it's cleaned up and we'll put it all back together.